Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of Rapid Recap here at Inside Nebraska. He's Greg Smith, I'm Zack Carpenter, and today we had a quick hitter round, lightning round pressers, what it felt like. Usually those are reserved for Thursdays, but today it was Marcus Satterfield saying Marcus Satterfield things, Evan Cooper saying Evan Cooper things, and Jeff Sims and Blaise Gunnerson. And only had like 4 or so minutes with Blaise and then 7 or so with Jeff before they were off to team meetings. But enough from Sims. First off, just came to my mind, I do want to say that after the game, post-game, and then again today, it is nice that, I mean, he had a really bad game. He's not shying away. He is facing the music. I think that's sort of the whole NFL mentality that I know Rules talked about in the summer several times of I'm going to put him at the microphone, so he's answering the question. Yeah,
I do think that that's commendable. I think that there's a real tendency, and it would be really easy to be like, hey, I'm going to talk to the media all off season long as everybody's talking about the new transfer quarterback. Then the second you have a bad game, you kind of say, I got class, or whatever, and that happens. So, but kudos to him though for at least not doing that, standing there facing the music and answering the questions as best as he could. Like I think that there was some things to take away from him, particularly like how, I don't want to say he wasn't solemn, I would not say, but he was serious about the fact that he needed to be better and that he was studying, which is something that we heard from his fellow teammates a couple of days ago as well, about how they'd kind of seen him bounce back to them, just being serious about his work and trying to go to another level and improve.
Yeah, I mean, real quick, I mean, there might be a time this year where he doesn't speak to the media after a bad game, but like, I think it's just in the NFL, you're going to get fined if you don't talk to the media after. So I think it is sort of that preparation. That was just one final fleeting thought on that. But yeah, like you mentioned, I mean, I asked him if he was putting maybe too much pressure on himself because of some of the things you mentioned. And some of the things, I mean, 3-year starter at Georgia Tech, transferred here to win the starting quarterback job, won the job, won over the locker room pretty quickly. And I mean, you hear at Big Ten Media Days, for instance, Luke Reimer raving about his arm talent, all the plays he can make. And then, I mean, it's not just Reimer, but
it was all over the place.
Have sung his praises. I don't think any of that's fake or anything. I don't think that was just them hyping him up. They truly believe in him. And I think that sometimes might feed into, just from afar, might feed into a feeling of like, I got to make a play now. Like, I'm leading the team down. Maybe even subconsciously, I'm leading the team down a 2-minute drive to win the game. Then you force the ball in there, and maybe it's sort of out of habit. But he did say, like, he kind of said yes. Like, he said, I wouldn't say putting extra pressure on myself, but I am someone who always does put a lot on my own shoulders and takes a lot of accountability. So I think he takes a performance like that, a loss like that, pretty hard. Yeah,
and it's interesting that accountability, though, goes to something that you just mentioned about how he won his teammates over fast. Like, I think that's part of that, right? It's not just it's funny, we talked about in the offseason about him kind of going through and learning all the guys' names, or as many as he could, and that's great, and that does bond you with your teammates. But when they see you being accountable, like, and they see him all through the offseason workouts and through spring ball and all of that, I'm sure they saw that same level of accountability, and that kind of made them want to follow him and rally around him as well. And I think that's why they have so much confidence, both the players and the coaching staff, that he's going to bounce back. And I think, you wouldn't be surprised if he came out there against Colorado and had a much better showing, especially from a turnover perspective, and didn't have those same mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy for guys to buy into you as a leader and just overall face when things are going well. So now things are not going well. He had a costly performance, and he knows that. He talked about getting back into the film room. He's already watched Minnesota twice, which these are things you expect. So it's not like I'm trying to overpraise him. Just kind of statement of fact. It sounds like he's doing the things necessary to have that bounce back game that everyone's expecting from him. All his teammates and coaches are expecting from him. And that Colorado game, cutting down the turnovers, is going to be hard against Travis Hunter at the corner and some of those fast skill guys. But we'll see if that comes to fruition on Saturday in that big matchup. Marcus Satterfield, also his Sims quarterback coach and play caller, was at the podium. I don't know if there's anything else.
I think that the big thing is, and it's not necessarily related to Sims, though it is, because Sims is part of that rushing attack, as he was asked about how you kind of attack this Colorado defense. And of course, he wasn't going to give the game plan away or anything like that. Here's our script for the first 12 plays.
3-by-1.
That's exactly what we're going to do. But he did get you 2 fundamental things that are still really important. He said, A, they need to be able to control the clock and run the football effectively and efficiently.
That's music to
Yes, everybody wants to hear that. Say that again. He wants to be able to run the ball effectively and efficiently. And you have to limit the turnover so that you give yourself a chance to have more possessions as well, so that you can hold that ball and you can keep that offense off the field. It all works hand in hand. And I think that's the biggest kind of takeaway from Marcus Satterfield today.
Yeah, I feel like we've hammered it home, the penalties and being disciplined, cutting back on the penalties, obviously the turnovers and that ball control. And I keep coming back to that 13-play, 80-yard drive. They get a field goal when it probably should have been a touchdown, could have been a touchdown, if not for false start, some other mistakes.
Yeah.
And I come back to Sam McEwen at Omaha World Herald. He made this point on a podcast 2-3 weeks ago, and I hadn't thought about it. And I'm like, that's a great point, because if you have this type of offense that you want to matriculate down the field, like sort of ground and pound, slow pace, you're gonna have if even just a 5-yard penalty or 1 or 2 yard loss on a run, maybe not that drastic, but it could set you back, like a 5-yard penalty at the 1 or 2 yard line. Especially
considering what you were seeing in game one in the passing game, right? You couldn't overcome that. You weren't getting those explosive plays down the field throwing it. They weren't really getting explosives out of the run either. That's the thing that I think also has to change if Sims is going to continue to run the ball as much as he did. 91 yards is good, but you want that to be more with the amount of times that he ran it to kind of to weigh out those hits as well. But yeah, you definitely don't want to have those setbacks.
You do like and hate that you hear from your quarterback when he's asked, like, how to feel to get hit, and he smiles. That was the time he smiled. He's like,
he did smile then. Yeah, so, he said that extra weight that he put on in the offseason really came in handy. But he did talk a little bit about sliding and how sometimes you do have to think about that, but that competitor in him just doesn't allow him to do it all the time.
Was he a baseball player?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Probably really easily to Google that, and we'll figure it out. You guys tell us. Sound off
in the comments. Sound off in the comments. Was Jeff Sims a baseball player?
So just real quick before we get out of here, Blaise Gunnerson also spoke. Steve Mark's going to have a feature story on that, and the D-line, I think. So you can check that out at InsideNebraska.com for more extensive. But last thing is Evan Cooper. His DBs, just again, like Steve wrote yesterday, it's a key matchup to watch. Are those Nebraska DBs versus Colorado skill players? And he's the one running that. Cooper is, and he talked about how at that position it's a lot like the offensive line, not like quarterback, where one you could win 99% of your reps, but the one you lose, everybody sees it.
Yep, it's on YouTube, it's on Twitter, is what he said. As soon as somebody misses that, and they've got a huge challenge, the spotlight is going to be on them. I asked him specifically about Quinton Newsome and how he saw him kind of rising to the challenge of facing Travis Hunter and some of those guys. He didn't want to go there really on like singling him out, even though this is a huge game for Quinton Newsome, and I'll keep saying that. But he said he wanted to see those guys kind of take an even-keeled approach, not get too high, not get too low, just come to work every day the same way that they had been. And based on what we've seen and what he said that he saw from the secondary, I think it's reasonable to expect that. They're facing some really good players, but I think people lose, though, in this discussion about that matchup this week, that they faced good skill position players last week. The receivers from Minnesota are not slouches.
Jackson.
Yeah, that kid's a good player. Jackson. Yeah, Jackson. He's a good player. Yeah. So those guys were good, and I think that was a good preparation for this. Travis Hunter may be a future first-round pick, but they didn't face slouches last week, and they faced good receivers throughout the year and throughout Clinton's career, and these other guys too. So I'll be interested to see kind of if there is that shock factor of how good those guys are based off what they've seen in the past.
And last point on Newsome, he was nowhere to be found last week, which is, I feel like, a good thing.
A good thing. That's it. Yeah.
So whenever you're not getting called, whenever someone doesn't notice a cornerback or an offensive lineman, typically means positive things. I know was it Mims for Oklahoma he went up against last year?
Yeah.
Right, and he didn't play very well. That was probably one of his the performances where he struggled the most, and that was probably one of the best receivers in the upper echelon of receivers he faced last year. So I'm curious if he can learn from some of that if he's going up against Travis Hunter.
We'll see.
And that's going to be on tape from last year. This is his next chance, like Greg said, like you said. This is his next chance to show out to pro scouts. You and Steve talked about it, and we talked about Newsome, our bold predictions video. You and I, you had more eloquent words to say, a little bit better way to describe it on that video, which you'll be able to check out tomorrow, Thursday morning, at InsideNebraska.com and the Inside Nebraska YouTube channel. We'll read like 48 hours out, 72 hours out, Wednesday, 72 hours out, roundabout, for the battle in Boulder, the showdown the showdown in Sanders land. I don't know. I'm just trying to come
Big
up with
noon
kickoff.
Big noon
kickoff at
no,
10
we
a.m.
stick to
Mountain
that.
time.
There we
That's
go.
probably better. But that's it for us. We're going to be back here for a Rule Lightning Round presser tomorrow before we're hitting the road to Boulder for the big noon kickoff showdown. So for Greg Smith, I'm Zack Carpenter, and we'll catch you guys again next time.